We need fresh blood to take this company forward. My name is Devin Rains. I am 39 years old and I built this place from the ground up. 3 years of my life went into Kristen Global, turning a half-baked startup idea into something that actually worked. While everyone else talked about disruption and innovation, I was the one crawling under server racks at 3 in the morning, fixing what they broke during their flashy presentations. The comment came from Weston Hale during our quarterly review meeting. He had been with the company for exactly 6 months. 6 months. I had been there since day one, when we operated out of a converted warehouse in Charlotte with folding tables and extension cords running everywhere. Back then, the founders actually knew my name. They knew what I did. They understood that without the back-end infrastructure I designed, their revolutionary platform was just expensive marketing materials. Weston sat at the head of the conference table like he owned the place. Maybe he did now. The board had brought him in as director of operations after our Series B funding round. Fresh perspective, they called it. Strategic leadership. He wore expensive suits and spoke in buzzwords that made the investors smile and nod. Synergy, scalability, market penetration. I watched him flip through his presentation slides, each one more colorful than the last. Charts showing projected growth, timelines for expansion, team restructuring plans. That last one made my stomach tighten. I had seen restructuring before. It never meant good things for people like me. "Devin, your work has been adequate," he said without looking up from his laptop. "But we need to think bigger, move faster. The old ways of doing things are holding us back." Adequate. 3 years of building their entire technical foundation from scratch, and he called it adequate. I did not say anything. I just nodded and made a note in my tablet. But something cold settled in my chest. Something that told me to start paying closer attention to the details. After the meeting, I walked back to my office and pulled up the company directory. Weston had hired 4 new people in the past month. All of them had fancy titles and salaries that made mine look like pocket change. None of them had been here when the servers crashed during our first major client demo. None of them remembered working through Christmas to meet impossible deadlines. None of them knew that the proprietary software everyone celebrated was built on architecture I had designed in my spare time, using my own equipment, before the company could afford proper development tools. I opened my contract file and started reading. Really reading. Every clause, every subsection, every piece of fine print that had seemed unimportant 3 years ago, when I was just grateful to have steady work. There were things in there I had forgotten about. Things that might matter more than I realized. The next morning, Weston announced our launch celebration. I joined Kristen Global when it was nothing more than 2 guys with an idea and $15,000 in seed money. Jacob Torres and Peter Caldwell had big dreams about revolutionizing data management for small businesses, but they needed someone who could actually build what they were promising. That someone was me. I spent the first 6 months working for equity and promises. 90-hour weeks in a cramped office above a pizza shop. The heat barely worked in winter, and the air conditioning died every summer. But we were building something real, something that mattered. When other developers told me I was crazy to work for startup equity, I believed in what we were creating. The breakthrough came during year 2. My custom database architecture solved a major bottleneck that had been plaguing our beta clients. Suddenly, our processing speeds were 3 times faster than anything else on the market. Jacob called it a game changer. Peter said we were going to be millionaires. I just felt proud that my work had made the difference. We hired our first real employees, moved into an actual office building, started landing contracts with major corporations. The local tech magazines wrote articles about our meteoric rise. Everyone wanted to know our secret. Jacob and Peter did all the interviews, but they always mentioned the brilliant technical team that made it possible. They meant me, mostly, but it felt good to be recognized. My dad called me every Sunday to check on the company. He had spent 40 years working construction, building other people's dreams with his hands. He understood what it meant to take pride in solid work. "You built something that lasts," he told me. "That matters more than money." I believed him then. The warning signs started small. Weston began scheduling meetings without including me. Important decisions about system upgrades and security protocols happened in conversations I was not part of. When I asked about new development priorities, he told me to focus on maintenance and bug fixes. Let the fresh talent handle innovation. Fresh talent. Tyler Morrison had a computer science degree from a prestigious university and ideas about modernizing our entire codebase. He had been with the company for 8 weeks. During team meetings, Weston asked for Tyler's input on everything. Tyler suggested migrating to newer frameworks, implementing artificial intelligence features, rebuilding core systems for better scalability. All good ideas in theory. But he did not understand the foundation those systems were built on. He did not know why certain decisions had been made or what problems the current architecture actually solved. I started documenting everything. Every system specification, every custom solution, every workaround that kept our platform running smoothly. I backed up critical files to my personal drives, not because I planned anything, but because 3 years of experience had taught me to prepare for worst-case scenarios. When Weston scheduled our launch celebration for next month, he forgot to invite me to the planning committee. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning at 8:47 a.m. Subject line, Team Restructuring, effective immediately. I opened it, expecting another meaningless corporate update about office policies or benefits changes. Instead, I found my termination notice. As part of our ongoing efforts to streamline operations and position the company for accelerated growth, we will be implementing strategic personnel changes. Your position has been eliminated as of today's date. Please coordinate with human resources regarding transition procedures and final compensation. No phone call, no meeting, no explanation, just a form letter that could have been sent to anyone. After 3 years of building their entire technical infrastructure, I got the same goodbye as someone who had worked there 3 weeks. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, reading the email over and over. The words did not change. The meaning did not soften. I had been discarded like outdated equipment, replaced by people who spoke the right buzzwords and fit Weston's vision of what a modern tech company should look like. But here was the thing Weston did not know. Here was the detail he had overlooked in his rush to modernize everything. When I originally built our core platform, I had retained certain intellectual property rights, standard freelancer protection that my attorney friend had insisted on including in my initial contract. Most companies would have removed those clauses before bringing me on as a full-time employee, but Jacob and Peter had been desperate to keep me happy back then. They had signed everything I asked for. That meant the encryption protocols governing our main database belonged to me. The custom API frameworks that connected all our client systems ran on code I owned. The deployment keys that pushed updates to production servers were generated by algorithms I had written and legally retained control over. Weston had fired the one person who actually held the technical keys to his empire. I drove home and opened my laptop. The launch celebration was scheduled for next Friday. Big event. Investor presentations, media coverage, live demonstrations of our revolutionary platform for hundreds of potential clients and partners. Weston had planned everything perfectly, except he had forgotten to ask me for the master deployment key. I spent the rest of the week preparing. Not revenge exactly, just a gift. Something appropriate for the occasion. Something that would help Weston understand exactly what he had thrown away when he decided my work was adequate. The irony was perfect. He wanted to celebrate freedom from people like me. Show the world how much better the company could be without outdated thinking and old-fashioned approaches. I was going to give him exactly what he asked for. Friday night, I put on my best suit and drove to the launch celebration. I had something special to deliver. The Grand Bridge Convention Center buzzed with energy when I walked through the front doors. 500 people in business attire, holding champagne glasses and networking like their careers depended on it. Investors in expensive suits clustered around high-top tables. Tech journalists with cameras and recording devices moved through the crowd. Potential clients studied promotional materials while sales representatives hovered nearby with practiced smiles. I had not been invited, but that did not matter. I still had my employee access card, and security recognized me from 3 years of attending company events. Nobody questioned why I was there. They assumed someone had forgotten to remove my name from the guest list. The main presentation area featured a massive screen displaying our company logo and the tagline, "Innovation Unleashed." Weston stood on stage in a charcoal gray suit, microphone in hand, radiating confidence. He looked like everything a successful tech executive should be: polished, articulate, completely in control of his domain. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice echoed through the sound system, "tonight marks a pivotal moment in the evolution of data management technology. Kristen Global has spent years developing solutions that will revolutionize how businesses handle their most critical information." The crowd applauded politely. Behind Weston, a live demonstration showed our platform processing thousands of transactions in real time. Charts and graphs illustrated processing speeds, security features, scalability metrics. Everything looked flawless. I moved closer to the stage, positioning myself where Weston could see me. His eyes found mine for a split second, and I saw the briefest flicker of surprise. He had not expected me to show up, especially not after terminating me without warning 5 days earlier. But he recovered quickly. Weston was good at adapting to unexpected situations. That was probably why the board had hired him. "This company has reached this milestone by making difficult decisions," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "We have moved beyond the limitations that held us back. Tonight we celebrate not just our technological achievements but our commitment to building a team of visionaries who understand what it takes to compete in tomorrow's marketplace." More applause. I noticed Tyler Morrison standing near the front of the crowd, nodding enthusiastically. Several other recent hires clustered around him, looking proud to be part of something important. They believed they were witnessing the birth of the next big thing in technology. Weston gestured toward the demonstration screen. "What you see here represents 3 years of innovation and development. Our proprietary platform processes data faster and more securely than anything else available today. We have solved problems that our competitors are still struggling to understand." 3 years of innovation. He was taking credit for everything I had built, presenting it as the collective achievement of his carefully selected team. Nobody in that audience knew the real story. Nobody understood that the impressive technology they were watching had been designed and implemented by someone Weston considered expendable. "But tonight is not just about celebrating our past accomplishments," he said, his tone shifting to something more dramatic. "Tonight is about looking forward to a future unburdened by the limitations of outdated thinking. We are finally free to pursue our vision without compromise." I felt that familiar cold settling in my chest, the same feeling I had experienced during our quarterly review meeting. Weston was building toward something, some grand declaration that would cement his position as the architect of the company's transformation. "To achieve greatness, sometimes you have to make tough choices," he continued. "Sometimes you have to part ways with people who cannot adapt to changing circumstances, people whose approaches belong to an earlier era of technology development." The audience leaned forward slightly. They sensed something significant coming. I reached into my jacket pocket and felt the small wrapped box I had brought with me. Everything was going exactly as I had expected. Weston could not resist making a spectacle out of his victory. He needed everyone to know how much better things would be without people like me dragging down his innovative team. He was about to give me the perfect opportunity to deliver my gift. "In fact," Weston continued, his voice carrying clearly through the convention center, "I want to be completely transparent about the changes we have made to position this company for success. Earlier this week, we eliminated several positions that no longer aligned with our strategic direction." I watched the faces in the crowd. Most people looked mildly uncomfortable with the sudden shift toward personnel discussions. This was supposed to be a product launch celebration, not a corporate restructuring announcement. But Weston seemed energized by having such a large audience for his management philosophy. One person in particular had been with the company since its early days. Devin Rains spent 3 years here, contributing what he could to our development efforts. But as we evolved into a more sophisticated organization, it became clear that his approach was holding us back. A few people in the audience turned to look at each other uncertainly. Weston was mentioning specific names now, specific individuals who had been terminated. This felt personal in a way that made everyone uncomfortable. But Weston did not seem to notice the shifting mood. He was too focused on his narrative of transformation and progress. Devin represented everything this company needed to move beyond: outdated methodologies, resistance to innovation, an inability to think strategically about our future direction. Tonight, we celebrate our freedom from that kind of limitation. He raised his champagne glass toward the crowd. To the pathetic employees who dragged us down for too long, may they find opportunities better suited to their capabilities somewhere else. The audience gave a scattered round of applause, but I could tell many people were confused by the hostile tone. This was not how successful executives typically discussed former employees at public events. Weston was revealing something ugly about his character, and everyone could see it, but he was also revealing something else, something he probably did not realize. During his speech, I had been watching the demonstration screen behind him. Our platform was running smoothly, processing sample data and displaying real-time analytics. Everything looked perfect, but I knew something Weston did not know. The system was running on cached data from our development environment. The live production servers that would handle actual client traffic were controlled by a different set of deployment protocols. Protocols that required authentication from the master encryption key, the key that I had generated using my own algorithms and retained legal ownership of according to my original contract. Weston thought he was celebrating his complete control over the company. He thought eliminating me had removed the last obstacle to his vision of streamlined operations and innovative thinking. He had no idea that his shiny new platform could not actually function without my cooperation. The demonstration he was showing the audience was essentially a recording, a pretty facade with no substance behind it. When clients tried to access their accounts on Monday morning, when investors attempted to verify the capabilities they had been promised tonight, when journalists wrote articles about the revolutionary technology they had witnessed, everyone would discover the same thing. Nothing worked. The production servers were locked behind encryption that only I could unlock. The custom APIs that connected client systems to our database would return error messages. The processing speeds and security features Weston had been bragging about would be completely inaccessible. I had built the entire technical foundation of this company, and I had retained the legal right to control access to it. Weston had been so eager to get rid of me that he had never bothered to verify whether he actually could. Now he was about to find out. I stepped forward through the crowd, moving toward the stage. People noticed me walking and turned to watch. Some of them probably recognized me from previous company events. Others might have wondered who I was and why I looked so calm while Weston continued his victory speech. It was time to deliver my gift. I walked directly to the front of the stage, maintaining eye contact with Weston as he continued his presentation. The audience began to murmur quietly as they noticed someone approaching the speaker. Security guards positioned around the room looked alert, but did not move to intercept me. I was well-dressed, walking calmly, and showing no signs of aggressive behavior. Weston finally noticed the distraction and paused his speech. He looked down at me with an expression that mixed annoyance with curiosity. This was not part of his planned program, and he clearly did not appreciate the interruption. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said loudly enough for my voice to carry through the room, "I apologize for interrupting such an important celebration." The crowd turned their attention toward me. Conversations stopped. Even the background music seemed to fade as everyone focused on whatever was about to happen. "My name is Devin Rains," I continued, pulling the small wrapped box from my jacket pocket. "Mr. Hale was just talking about me. I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to properly congratulate him on his new direction for the company." Weston stared at me with obvious displeasure. He had not expected me to appear at this event, and he certainly had not planned for me to address his audience directly. But backing down now would make him look weak in front of investors and potential clients. "Devin," he said into his microphone, forcing a smile, "how generous of you to attend our celebration. I hope you enjoyed the presentation." "Oh, I did," I replied, holding up the wrapped box. "In fact, I was so impressed by your vision for the future that I brought you a gift, something to commemorate this historic moment." The audience watched with fascination. This kind of personal drama was not something they expected at a corporate product launch. but it was certainly more entertaining than standard business presentations. Weston hesitated. He could refuse the gift and look petty in front of his audience, or he could accept it and risk whatever surprise I had prepared. Either choice carried risks, but his ego would not allow him to appear intimidated by someone he had just finished describing as inadequate. "Well," he said, stepping down from the stage to meet me, "that is very thoughtful of you." I handed him the box with a smile. "From your biggest mistake." He took it without really listening to my words. He was too focused on maintaining his composure in front of the crowd. Several people had started recording with their phones, and photographers were positioning themselves to capture whatever happened next. Weston unwrapped the box quickly, clearly wanting to get through this unexpected interruption and return to his presentation. The audience leaned forward to see what was inside. When he lifted the lid, his confident expression immediately changed. Inside was a single USB drive with a label that read, "Production Deployment Key, Kristen Global Core Platform." For a moment, he just stared at it. Then his eyes met mine, and I saw understanding begin to dawn. His face went pale as he realized what he was holding. "What is this?" he asked quietly. "Exactly what it says," I replied. "The master encryption key for all production servers. The one thing you need to make your revolutionary platform actually work for real clients." Behind us, the demonstration screen flickered slightly. Then it went completely black. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at the dead monitor. Emergency lighting activated as backup systems tried to compensate for whatever had just failed. But nothing happened. The screen remained dark. Weston looked back at the USB drive in his hands, then at me. "Welcome to your future," I said. The convention center descended into controlled chaos within 30 seconds. The main demonstration screen had gone completely dark, but that was just the beginning. Tablets and laptops throughout the room started displaying error messages as they lost connection to our servers. The live data feeds that had been impressing investors suddenly showed nothing but timeout notices. Weston stood frozen, holding the USB drive like it might explode in his hands. Behind him, technicians rushed onto the stage, frantically checking cables and trying to restart systems. None of it would work. I had designed the encryption protocols myself, and I was the only person who could unlock them. "What did you do?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the growing murmur of confused voices. "I gave you exactly what you asked for," I replied calmly. "Freedom from pathetic employees who drag you down. Now you can see how well your revolutionary platform works without my outdated methodologies." The audience was beginning to understand that something serious had gone wrong. Investors pulled out their phones to call their assistants. Journalists started taking notes about the technical failure they were witnessing. Potential clients gathered their promotional materials and headed for the exits. Tyler Morrison appeared at Weston's shoulder looking panicked. "The entire production environment is locked out," he said urgently. "Nothing is responding. All client accounts are inaccessible." Weston's hands shook slightly as he held the USB drive. "Fix it," he ordered. "I cannot," Tyler replied. "The encryption is custom-built. I do not even understand how it works." I watched Weston's face as the full scope of his situation became clear. He had built his entire launch celebration around demonstrating technology that he could not actually control. He had fired the one person who understood the system architecture, and now that system was completely locked down. The irony was perfect. He had wanted to show the world how much better the company could be without me. Instead, he was proving that the company could not function at all without me. Security guards finally approached, but they seemed uncertain about what to do. I had not damaged any property or threatened anyone. I had simply delivered a gift and watched as Weston's own arrogance revealed the truth about his leadership. "The key is right there in your hands," I told him. "All you have to do is ask nicely." I left the convention center while Weston was still trying to explain to investors why his revolutionary platform had suddenly stopped working. The parking lot was full of people making phone calls and looking frustrated. Some of them recognized me as I walked to my car, but nobody tried to stop me. Over the next week, the story played out exactly as I had expected. Tech blogs wrote articles about the spectacular failure at Kristen Global's launch event. Investors withdrew their commitments. Major clients canceled their contracts. The company's valuation dropped by 60% in 5 days. Weston tried calling me repeatedly, offering increasingly desperate terms for my cooperation. First, he wanted to negotiate my return as a consultant. Then he offered a partnership deal. Finally, he begged me to simply unlock the servers so the company could survive. I never answered his calls. Instead, I spent the week talking with Jacob Torres, one of the original founders. He had been watching Weston's management style with growing concern, and the launch disaster had convinced him that changes were necessary. Jacob still owned 40% of the company, and he had the support of 2 other board members who were tired of Weston's arrogance. By Friday, Weston had been removed as director of operations. The board offered me his position, along with equity that made me a partial owner of the technology I had created. I accepted, with one condition. Tyler Morrison and the other recent hires who had been brought in to replace outdated employees would have the opportunity to prove themselves under my leadership, but they would do it with respect for the foundation that already existed. I unlocked the servers on Monday morning. The platform came back online smoothly, and our clients barely noticed the temporary disruption. Within a month, we had recovered most of the contracts we had lost during the launch failure. Weston found a position with a smaller company in Atlanta. I heard he was doing fine, but he never again made the mistake of underestimating the people who built what he was trying to lead. Sometimes the best revenge is simply giving someone exactly what they ask for.